The council chamber held 200 species, and not a single voice. Captain Saria Chen stood alone in the center of the vast circular space. Her uniform was crisp. Her black hair showed a gray streak at the temple, and no one knew if it came from age or from the weight of 50 million lives pressing down on her shoulders. Her hands hung at her sides, relaxed, but her thumb moved. Once, twice, pressing against her wedding ring. The silver had worn thin where she touched it. Water bubbled in the Delphin observation spheres. Kresh mandibles clicked in nervous rhythms. Lumini light flickered across the crystal resonance chambers, refracting off the curved walls. The Saurian elders sat motionless, their silver scales catching the dim glow. Chen reached into her uniform pocket. The chamber went quieter, not silent. You could still hear the Delphin water moving, the small pumps that kept them alive in their suits. But close enough. 200 species, representatives from every corner of the galactic conquered, watching one human woman pull out a data chip. She placed it on the podium. The chip was small, unremarkable, gray plastic, slightly scuffed at the edges. Complete technical specifications, Chen said. Her voice was steady. Fusion reactors, agricultural decks, point defense, everything we built to survive. Commander Thrax's mandibles stopped clicking. The Kresh warrior went completely still. That had never happened before, not in the 3 weeks of debate, not when the first sensor readings arrived, not when Zurich brought back footage of the Resolute's interior. The Kresh always clicked. 17 primary fusion reactors, Chen continued. Over 100 secondary systems. 12 agricultural decks, each one capable of producing enough food for 4 million people. The hull plating specifications. The hibernation pod designs, the recycling systems that keep us breathing. She stepped back from the podium. No conditions, no payment, take it. Elder Murren leaned forward. His scales had turned silver decades ago, and his eyes held the kind of patience that only came from watching civilizations rise and fall. Captain Chen, you understand what you are offering. I understand that 4 billion humans died on Earth. Chen's voice didn't crack. Not yet. I understand that we couldn't save them because we ran out of time and resources. If sharing what we learned helps even one of your species survive a crisis. She stopped, her thumb pressed against the ring again. Once, twice. Then maybe the 4 billion we lost didn't die for nothing. The vote began. Each delegation registered their decision through the council's ancient system. Lights flickered across the chamber walls, green for yes, red for no, amber for abstain. The Delphin bubbled something in their own language, then pressed their approval. The Kresh delegation argued behind closed mandibles. Commander Thrax sat motionless, still not clicking. The count climbed. 97 in favor, 32 against, the rest still voting. Chen didn't move. She stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by species that had feared her people 3 weeks ago. That had debated whether to destroy the Resolute before it could reach conquered space. That had called humanity everything from world eaters to naive fools. Elder Murren's gavel struck the podium. Wood on stone. 147 in favor, 53 opposed. The motion passes. The chamber erupted. Not in celebration, the conquered didn't cheer. But water spheres rippled faster. Lumini light brightened. Kresh mandibles started clicking again, and this time it wasn't aggression. Chen's legs nearly gave out. She caught herself. Her thumb found the ring. Humanity has a home, Murren said. 3 worlds in the refuge systems. New Terra, Haven's Rest, Sanctuary's Promise, Provisional Alliance status to be reviewed in 10 standard years. Chen nodded. She didn't trust her voice. Zurich stood at the edge of the chamber, watching. He had been appointed the first conquered ambassador to humanity 3 days ago, and he still wasn't sure he deserved the position. His scales were younger than Murren's, a deep bronze instead of silver, but he had seen enough in the past 3 weeks to fill a lifetime. He watched Chen's thumb stop moving. The ring twisted once more. Then her hand dropped to her side. She didn't cry. Zurich thought that might be the most terrifying thing about her. 3 weeks earlier, at the edge of the Veil Rift, the alarm didn't scream, it whispered. That was worse. Junior technician Valdek floated above the sensor console, his crystalline body refracting the dim blue light of the peripheral monitoring station. He was Lumini, 300 years old, and until this moment he had never felt genuine terror. Concern, yes. Curiosity, often. But not this cold certainty that something was wrong in a way that shouldn't be possible. The gravitational sensors showed readings that made no sense. Something was moving through the void between stars. Something that bent space like a fist closing. The ripples spread outward from a point that hadn't been there an hour ago, distorting the quantum foam in patterns Valdek had only seen in theoretical models. "Senior Monitor," he called out, his voice cracked. He hadn't known Lumini voices could crack. "You need to see this." The Xula floated over. She was older than Valdek by 2 centuries, and her internal light had dimmed to a steady amber that spoke of experience rather than vitality. When she saw the readings, her light flickered. "That cannot be right. Run a full diagnostic on all sensors." Valdek's 6 fingers danced across the controls. 20 minutes later, he looked up at her with fear in his eyes, fear that made his crystal structure pulse unevenly. "All systems are functioning perfectly. The readings are accurate." The Xula's light flickered again. Then it went very still. The object moving toward conquered space was roughly 15 kilometers long. No known species in the galaxy built anything that large. The largest conquered vessels were barely 2 kilometers at their longest, and those were considered engineering miracles. "Send emergency notification to the Central Council," she said quietly. "Priority Alpha protocols." She paused. "May the ancient light help us all." Within hours, the message reached Sanctuary. The diplomatic hub world orbited a calm yellow star, its surface covered in the infrastructure of 1,000 years of negotiation. Orbital rings circled the planet at 3 different altitudes, each one hosting diplomatic missions, cultural exchange centers, and the vast circular chamber where the conquered council met. The chamber filled quickly. Representatives from over 200 species arrived through dedicated transit tunnels, their movements ranging from the slow, dignified walk of Saurian elders to the frantic skittering of Kresh warriors. Commander Thrax arrived first among the military delegations. His chiton was polished to a dark sheen, and his mandibles clicked in a rapid rhythm that spoke of barely contained aggression. He leaped onto the Kresh platform and surveyed the chamber with compound eyes that missed nothing. "A threat," he announced to no one in particular. "A clear threat. The ancient texts of my people speak of world eaters, vessels so large they could consume entire planets." Counselor Luminara floated onto the Lumini platform, her crystal body pulsing with soft blue light. She was younger than the Xula, more idealistic, and her internal energy flickered with concern rather than fear. "We do not know what this is yet," she said. "Fear without knowledge serves no purpose." Thrax's mandibles clicked harder. "Your species has never faced a real threat. The Kresh remember the old wars. We remember what happens when we show weakness to predators." The Delphin delegation arrived in their water-filled mobility suits, their aquatic bodies releasing bubbles of distress that rose to the top of the spheres. Their translator systems lagged behind their emotions, so the first words to emerge were garbled clicks and whistles that somehow still conveyed anxiety. Elder Murren took his place at the center of the chamber. His voice was steady, but those who knew him could detect the underlying worry in the way his claws tapped the podium. "Members of the Conquered, we face an unprecedented situation. An object of immense size approaches our territory. We do not know if it is a vessel, a weapon, or something else entirely." Thrax leaped to his feet again. "We should strike now while it is still far from our core worlds, destroy it before it can threaten us. And if it is peaceful," Luminara's light flared, "would you have us become the aggressors? We have maintained peace for 8 centuries by choosing dialogue first. Peace maintained by never facing a real threat." The debate raged for days. Some species advocated for immediate military buildup. Others wanted to send diplomatic envoys ahead of any military presence. A few suggested evacuating the outer systems entirely until the threat could be properly assessed. Murren listened to all of them. He had learned long ago that the Conquered strength came from its diversity of perspectives, especially when, those perspectives clashed. On the 3rd day, he made his decision. Ambassador Zurich. Zurich stepped forward from the Saurian delegation. He was mid-ranked, experienced but not famous, careful but not cowardly. His scales were bronze, his movements measured, and he had a reputation for thinking before acting. High Counselor, you will take a scout fleet of 12 vessels. Your mission is first contact and assessment. Under no circumstances are you to fire first. We need information, not war. Zurich bowed his head. I understand. Murren placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. The scales were cool against Zurich's uniform. I chose you because you think before you act. The galaxy may depend on that quality in the coming days. 3 days later, at the Veil Rift, Zurich's fleet assembled at the edge of conquered space. 12 vessels of varying sizes, from the flagship Conquered Voice to 3 fast scouts and 8 escort corvettes. They were not a battle fleet. They were a diplomatic mission with teeth. The Conquered Voice's bridge was quiet. Zurich stood at the main viewport, watching the stars stretch and shift as the navigation team calculated their intercept course. Second Officer Sarilith floated beside him in her Delphin mobility suit, water bubbling through her breathing apparatus. The object's energy signature continues to match Dr. Shinvara's analysis, she reported. Life support distribution, agricultural scale emissions. Whatever this vessel is, it's designed to keep massive numbers of beings alive. Zurich nodded. Dr. Shinvara's discovery had changed everything. The object wasn't a weapon. It was a city, a civilization in motion. The High Council is still split, Sarilith continued. Commander Thrax has mobilized the Kresh Defense Fleet. He's positioned them at the sanctuary approach. Thrax sees threats everywhere, because he spent 800 years looking for them. Zurich turned from the viewport. What do you make of these humans, Sarilith? Assuming they're humans. Assuming that translation is accurate. The Delphin bubbled thoughtfully. They built a vessel that should be impossible. They filled it with 50 million people. They crossed interstellar space with no guarantee of survival. She paused. They are either desperate or dangerous, possibly both. They're refugees. Refugees with enough firepower to crack a planet. Zurich had no answer for that. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. For 3 days, they crossed through the void between stars, following the trajectory that would bring them to intercept the unknown vessel at the edge of the Veil Rift. Zurich gathered his senior staff on the second day. I want all crews trained on first contact protocols. Yes, we are prepared for combat if necessary, but our primary mission is communication. We represent every species in the Conquered. How we handle this will be remembered for generations. Sarilith bubbled nervously. Sir, what if they don't want to communicate? What if this vessel is an invasion force? Zurich considered the question carefully. Then we learn what we can and retreat to warn our people. But I refuse to believe that any species capable of building something so magnificent came all this way simply to destroy. There must be a reason, a purpose we don't yet understand. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Veil Rift. Every sensor on the Conquered Voice spiked simultaneously. The vessel was there, 15 kilometers of dark metal and composite materials, its hull covered with what appeared to be weapons emplacements, sensor arrays, and massive engine assemblies. Lights glowed from thousands of points along its surface, giving it the appearance of a city floating in the void. The Resolute. Zurich forced himself to breathe. His tactical training wanted him to see this as a threat. His diplomatic instincts told him to look deeper. Communications. Are we ready to transmit? Yes, sir. All first contact protocols are loaded. Send the mathematical sequence, followed by chemical notation, then basic linguistic patterns. Let's hope someone out there speaks the universal language of numbers. The transmission went out. On the observation screens, the massive vessel simply hung in space. Silent, imposing. Seconds turned to minutes. The bridge crew shifted nervously. Sarilith's water suit bubbled faster. Then the vessel responded. A burst of data came through, perfectly matching the Conquered's mathematical and chemical sequences. Whoever was aboard that ship understood the basics of universal communication. They were intelligent. They wanted to talk. We have incoming visual transmission. the communications officer announced. The main screen flickered. A face appeared. Zurich heard gasps across the bridge. The being looking back at them was bilaterally symmetrical with two forward-facing eyes. Predator eyes, Zurich noted. The creature had smooth skin without scales or chitin, colored a warm brown. Hair grew from the top of its head, tied back in a practical manner. The face showed expressions that seemed almost readable. Concern, caution, hope. I am Captain Saria Chen, of the United Nations Space Corps vessel Resolute. The words were incomprehensible, but within seconds, the Conqueror's translation algorithms began parsing the language structure. We come in peace. We seek only safe passage and, if possible, friendship. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. Zurich felt some of his tension ease. I am Ambassador Captain Zurich of the Galactic Concord. Your vessel is impressive and unexpected. We wish to understand your intentions. Captain Chen's face showed what might have been relief. We are refugees. Our star was dying. We built 12 ships to save as many of our people as possible. The Resolute carries 50 million souls seeking a new home among the stars. The bridge went completely silent. 50 million beings on a single vessel. The number was staggering. The largest conquered colony ships carried perhaps 50,000. This was something beyond their experience. From the planet below, frantic messages flooded Zurich's communication system. The Council wanted answers. Military commanders wanted threat assessments. Scientists wanted data. Zurich ignored them all. 50 million, he repeated slowly. Your species must be remarkable builders, but I must ask, Captain Chen, why does your refugee vessel carry so many weapons? Chen's expression shifted to something that might have been sadness. Because we didn't know what we would find out here in the dark. We hoped for friends but prepared for threats. Every species on this ship is someone we couldn't bear to lose. We built the Resolute to protect them, whatever we might encounter. Before Zurich could respond, proximity alarms blared across the bridge. A young Kresh pilot, Tixel, stationed on one of the escort fighters, had panicked when the Resolute's scanning beam swept across his small craft. His hands, shaking with adrenaline and fear, moved toward the weapon's controls. All ships stand down, Zurich shouted into the fleet channel. That is a direct order, do not fire. But Tixel's fear was stronger than his training. His finger hovered over the firing button. In that frozen moment, Zurich saw the future balancing on the edge of a blade. One nervous trigger pull could start a war. One shot could doom both species to conflict. Captain Chen's face disappeared from the screen, replaced by tactical readouts. Zurich watched in horror as the Resolute's weapon systems powered up in response to the perceived threat. Point defense turrets rotated toward Tixel's fighter. Energy readings spiked across the massive hull. Tixel, stand down immediately. Captain Saralith's voice was sharp, cutting through the panic. That is a direct order from your ambassador. Tixel's mandibles clacked in distress. His hand trembled over the firing button. His fighter's weapons were locked, targeting solutions calculated, and all it would take was one more millimeter of pressure. Tixel, Zurich's voice dropped, quiet now, almost calm. Look at me. The young pilot's compound eyes shifted toward the bridge feed. You felt fear, that's not weakness, that's survival. But survival means listening to the beings who have more experience than you, and I have more experience. Stand down. Tixel's hand pulled back from the controls. The moment stretched out, balanced on uncertainty. Then, slowly, the Resolute's weapons powered down. The turrets returned to neutral positions. Energy readings dropped to standby levels. Captain Chen's face reappeared on the screen. She had been speaking urgently to someone off camera, and her expression was tight. Ambassador Captain Zurich, we detected a weapons lock from one of your escorts. Was that intentional? Zurich made a decision that would be studied in diplomatic academies for generations. No, Captain Chen, that was fear. One of my pilots is young and frightened by your vessel's size and power. He acted on instinct, not orders. I apologize for the incident. Chen's face showed surprise, then what looked like respect. I understand fear. Thank you for your honesty. She paused, her thumb found her wedding ring. Once, In the interest of reducing tension, I would like to invite you and a small delegation aboard the Resolute. Let us show you who we are. Let us prove we mean no harm. Military advisors shouted warnings across Zurich's private channel. The Kresh delegation demanded he refuse immediately. Commander Thrax's message was a single word: no. Zurich looked at Chen's face on the screen and saw something he recognized. The desperate hope of someone who had lost everything and was asking for a chance. I accept your invitation, Captain Chen. I will bring 5 representatives from different conquered species. When would be convenient? Whenever you're ready, Ambassador. We'll transmit docking coordinates to your flagship. The Resolute welcomes you. The transmission ended. Zurich's second officer turned to him with wide eyes. Sir, the Council is demanding you refuse. They say it's too dangerous. Zurich stood, straightening his uniform. Then the Council can find a new ambassador captain. Someone must be first. Someone must take the risk to build bridges instead of walls. Today, that someone is me. He selected his delegation carefully. Saralith for her scientific expertise. Dr. Shinvara for her understanding of energy systems. Commander Thrax's second officer, a Kresh named Velmer who was less aggressive than his superior. 2 others representing different conquered perspectives. Before they boarded the shuttle that would take them to the Resolute, Zurich addressed them quietly. We are about to see something no conquered species has ever witnessed. A civilization that builds on a scale we cannot imagine. Whatever we find aboard that vessel, remember, they are refugees who have lost their home. They deserve our compassion, even if they also deserve our caution. The shuttle launched. It crossed the void between the small conquered flagship and the massive human vessel. As they approached, the true scale of the Resolute became overwhelming. Their entire shuttle could have fit inside some of the surface structures hundreds of times over. A docking bay opened in the vessel's side, large enough to accommodate a conquered cruiser. The shuttle seemed like a toy as it descended into the illuminated interior. The airlock cycled. Zurich stepped through. Captain Saria Chen was waiting. Behind her stood an honor guard of humans in crisp uniforms, their faces neutral but their eyes curious. Chen extended her hand. The gesture was unfamiliar to Zurich. His translation systems identified it as a greeting, a sign of respect. Open palm, fingers slightly curved. Not a weapon grip, not a plea. Zurich reached out. He grasped her hand carefully. Her skin was warm, calluses pressed against his palm, the hands of someone who worked, who built, who had done more than give orders from a safe distance. The moment stretched. First physical contact between humans and the galactic conquered. It would be recorded in history archives forever. Welcome aboard, Ambassador Captain. Chen smiled. It was a tired smile but genuine. Let us show you who we are. The tour took 3 hours. Chen led them through corridors designed for moving armies but filled with families. Children ran past, laughing and chasing each other, completely unafraid of the strange aliens walking with their captain. Parents nodded politely, some curious, others simply going about their daily lives. This section is Residential District 7, Chen explained as they walked. We have 23 residential districts total, each designed to house approximately 2 million people. We tried to recreate the feeling of neighborhoods, places where people could build communities, even while traveling through the void. Dr. Shinvara's crystalline form pulsed with curiosity. Captain Chen, the energy required to maintain life support for so many beings must be enormous. How do you power such a vessel? Chen smiled. I'll show you our reactor cores later. Short answer, fusion reactors, plural, 17 primary reactors and over 100 secondary systems. When we designed the Resolute, every calculation started with one question. How do we keep people alive for potentially centuries in deep space? They passed through a marketplace. Vendors sold goods from small stalls. The air smelled of cooking food, spices that were alien to the conquered species, but somehow inviting. Humans bartered and chatted, creating an atmosphere that felt lived in and real. Commander Velmer clicked his mandibles nervously. Captain, forgive my directness, but we detected what appeared to be weapon systems covering your hull. If this is a peaceful vessel, why so much firepower? Chen's expression became more serious. Let me show you something. She led them to a vast viewport, overlooking one of the ship's exterior sections. The turrets that the Conquered had identified as weapons were visible, but now Zurich could see them in context. They were small compared to the ship's massive size, positioned to provide defensive coverage rather than offensive capability. Point defense systems, Chen said. In deep space, even a small asteroid moving at high speed can punch through hull plating. We need to intercept debris before it can harm the ship. The larger emplacements are for mining operations. High-powered lasers break down asteroids for raw materials. Everything we build, we must source from space itself. Sarilith bubbled thoughtfully. So the weapons are actually tools, repurposed for protection. Exactly, Chen nodded. Though I won't lie to you, if we're threatened, those tools can be used defensively. We learn to think in terms of defense, not offense. When you're protecting 50 million lives, you don't take chances. They continued deeper into the ship. Engineering sections where humans worked on maintaining the massive systems that kept the Resolute functioning. Medical bays that could handle thousands of patients. Schools where human children learned about Earth, the homeworld they had never seen and would never visit. But it was the agricultural decks that truly stunned the delegation. Chen led them into a chamber so vast that weather patterns formed inside it. Artificial sunlight streamed from panels in the ceiling. Fields of grain stretched into the distance, tended by automated systems and human workers. Trees grew in organized groves, their branches heavy with fruit. Agricultural Deck 3, Chen said quietly. We have 12 of these throughout the ship. They produce enough food to feed everyone aboard with surplus for storage. We designed them to be efficient but also beautiful. People need more than just nutrition. They need to see green things growing. They need to remember what it felt like to stand on a planet. Dr. Shinvara moved forward, her energy field reaching out to scan the plants. These are remarkably Earth-like conditions. You've recreated entire ecosystems inside your vessel. We had to. Chen walked toward a tree and placed her palm against its bark. Not just for food, for psychological survival. Humans need nature, even artificial nature. Without these spaces, without the illusion of planet-side life, people would lose hope during the long journey. Zurich noticed structures between the trees. Looking closer, he realized they were homes. Families actually lived here, in houses surrounded by growing things. Children played in gardens just like they might have on ancient Earth. Some people couldn't bear living in the metal corridors, Chen explained. So we let them build homes in the agricultural decks. As long as they maintain the systems and help with farming, they can live surrounded by growing things. We learned early that different people need different environments to feel human. Commander Velmer had been silent for some time. Now he spoke, his voice subdued. Captain Chen, my people have legends of world eaters, massive vessels that consumed planets. When we first detected your ship, I believed those legends were real. I advocated for destroying you before you could reach our worlds. Chen turned to face him directly. And now I see that you are not world eaters. You are world carriers. You brought your world with you because you had no choice. Velmer's mandibles clicked once softly. I was wrong. I apologize. Chen reached out slowly, allowing Velmer to see the gesture coming. She placed her hand gently on his chitinous shoulder. You weren't wrong to be cautious. You were wrong only in assuming the worst without evidence. Thank you for being willing to change your mind. The memorial hall was next. It was the first time Zurich saw Chen hesitate before entering a room. The chamber was dimly lit with holographic projections floating in the darkness. Each projection showed a face, a name, a brief biography. Thousands of them filled the space. Millions, each one representing a human who had died when Earth's sun began to fail. 4 billion people, Chen said. Her voice was barely audible. 4 billion humans that we couldn't save. We had 30 years warning when our scientists detected the sun's instability. In that time, we built 12 Titan-class vessels. She paused. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. The delegation walked through the projections in silence. Zurich read the brief descriptions under each face. Teachers, artists, farmers, children, elders, scientists, laborers, every one of them a life that ended because humanity ran out of time. We remember them, Chen continued. Every person aboard every Titan-class ship spends time in their memorial hall. We remember because forgetting would dishonor their sacrifice. They died so that we could live. The least we can do is carry their memory with us to whatever new home we find. Dr. Shinvara's internal light had dimmed with sadness. Captain, I cannot imagine the grief your people carry. To lose so many, to have to choose who would live and who would die. How did you survive such trauma? Chen smiled. It was a sad smile. By focusing on the living, by making sure that those 4 billion deaths meant something. If we give up, if we fail to find a new home and thrive, then they died for nothing. So we keep going. We keep hoping. We keep building. They moved on to the hibernation decks. Massive chambers stretched in all directions, each one containing thousands of suspension pods. Inside each pod, a human slept in artificial hibernation, their life functions reduced to barely measurable levels. 30 million people, Chen explained. We don't have resources to keep everyone awake during the journey, so we rotate. Each person spends 10 years awake, then 30 years asleep, then 10 more awake. It lets us stretch our resources and gives everyone a chance to be part of the journey. Saralith pressed her face close to one of the pods, looking at the sleeping human inside. They trust you completely, to sleep while you guide them through unknown space, to give up decades of their lives in the hope that you'll find them a home. It's not just trust in me. Chen touched the pod's surface. It's trust in each other. Every person on this ship knows that we survive together or not at all. That's the one good thing that came from Earth's death. We learned that we're all in this together. The bridge of the Resolute was functional but not militaristic. Humans worked at various stations, monitoring systems, calculating courses, maintaining communications with other parts of the ship. An elderly human man approached. His hair was white with age, his face lined with years of responsibility. This is Dr. James Park, Chen introduced him. Our chief scientist and the lead architect of the Titan-class vessels. Dr. Park bowed slightly. Ambassador Captain, I understand you have concerns about our intentions. Let me be direct. We need approximately 3 things from you. Permission to pass through your space safely, information about suitable worlds for colonization, and ideally friendship and trade relations. We have no interest in conquest. We've seen what death and loss look like. We choose life, even when it's difficult. Zurich felt the weight of decision pressing on him. These humans were refugees on a scale the conquered had never dealt with, but they were also potential allies. A species that built with vision and survived through cooperation. Before he could respond, proximity alarms blared across the Resolute's bridge. Chen's tactical officer spoke, his voice tense. Captain, 40 unidentified vessels just dropped from FTL at the edge of the system. They're moving toward the conquered fleet. Energy signatures indicate weapons active. Chen's expression hardened. Identify. Pirate configuration. Modified cruisers, fighter support boarding craft. They're targeting the conquered escorts. Zurich watched in horror as the tactical display updated. 3 of his escort ships took direct hits. The conquered voice shuddered as its shields absorbed impacts. Saralith cried out in alarm. They're beginning boarding actions on the Harmony's light. Captain Chen, Zurich said, his mind racing through limited options. You should retreat. Get your people to safety. This isn't your fight. Chen's eyes met his. For a moment, she looked like someone who wanted to agree. Then her jaw tightened. Ambassador Captain, with respect, you're wrong. You came here in good faith. You brought your people to meet mine. That makes this very much our fight. She turned to her crew. Tactical, power up all defensive systems. Weapons target enemy vessels only. Precision strikes on engines and weapon systems. No kill shots unless absolutely necessary. Communications. Broadcast to the pirate fleet that they have one chance to withdraw peacefully. The warning went out. The pirate leader, a scarred human named Kalen Vross, according to the translation, laughed when he heard it. The big ship thinks it can threaten us. Show them what happens to ships that don't know their place. 20 missiles streaked toward the Resolute. Chen watched them come. Her expression was calm. Point defense engage. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for decades. The Resolute's hull was covered with small turrets, hundreds of them, each one designed to intercept asteroids and space debris traveling at tremendous speeds. Against missiles, they were devastatingly effective. Tracking systems locked onto each incoming projectile. Laser point defense fired in precise, calculated bursts. Every single missile was destroyed before reaching the Resolute's hull. The pirate fleet's opening volley vanished in a series of small explosions against the backdrop of space. On his command ship, Vross stared at his screens in disbelief. What kind of defense system is that? Fire everything, overwhelm their point defense. The pirate fleet unleashed its full arsenal. Hundreds of missiles, plasma torpedoes, kinetic projectiles, all targeted at the massive human vessel. The Resolute's point defense grid responded with machine efficiency. Turrets tracked and fired, creating an invisible web of defensive lasers that nothing could penetrate. Impressive, Commander Velmer murmured, watching the display. They're not even straining their systems. Captain Chen's voice remained steady. Tactical. Are the conquered ships still under attack? Yes, Captain. The pirates are boarding the Harmony's Light and 2 other vessels. Conquered crews are fighting, but they're not equipped for this. Chen nodded. Then we end this. Weapons. Target the enemy vessels engaged in boarding actions. Disable them. Precision over power. I want them alive if possible. Yes, Captain. Firing rail guns. The weapons that Zurich had seen, the ones Chen called mining tools, revealed their true dual nature. Rail guns designed to accelerate chunks of ore for processing could just as easily accelerate tungsten rounds to velocities approaching relativistic speeds. The targeting was surgical. Rail gun rounds struck the pirate vessels at specific points: engine sections, weapons emplacements, power generation systems. The impacts were devastating but controlled. Within 30 seconds, 5 pirate ships were crippled, floating dead in space. Their crews still alive. Vross watched 3 of his ships go dark. All ships, evasive maneuvers, focus fire on that monster. But the Resolute had been designed by humans, who understood something fundamental about survival. The best defense was not to destroy your enemy. It was to make attacking you impossibly costly. The remaining pirate ships tried to close distance, firing as they came. Every shot was intercepted or absorbed by hull plating designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts at interstellar speeds. Captain, the tactical officer reported, the pirate flagship is attempting to target our civilian sections with heavy plasma weapons. Chen's jaw tightened. This was the line that couldn't be crossed. Threaten the ship's defenses and she would disable you. Threaten the 50 million people under her protection and she would end you. Rail guns, target the flagship's main weapons array. Maximum power. I want those plasma cannons gone. The Resolute's primary rail gun fired. The round crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. The impact tore through the pirate flagship's forward section, removing its main weapons in a single precise strike. The ship tumbled, its systems failing, but its crew compartments remained intact. The remaining pirate vessels saw their leadership crippled and broke formation. Some tried to flee. Others continued attacking out of desperation or stupidity. The Resolute disabled each one with the same clinical precision. 4 minutes after the battle began, 40 pirate ships floated powerless in space. Not a single one had been destroyed. Not a single crew member had been killed by human weapons fire. Zurich stood on the bridge, trying to process what he had just witnessed. The Resolute had faced a numerically superior force and neutralized them without breaking a sweat, without killing anyone. The restraint was as impressive as the power. Chen was already moving to the next priority. Medical teams prepare to receive casualties. Triage stations for conquered and pirate wounded alike. Engineering, send damage control teams to help repair the conquered vessels. Communications, open a channel to the pirate flagship. Vross's face appeared on screen, bloodied, furious. You should have destroyed us. Why didn't you finish it? Chen's expression was tired but firm. Because we've seen enough death, pirate. Your crews are someone's sons and daughters, someone's family. You made terrible choices today, but that doesn't mean you deserve to die. Conquered authorities will deal with you. Our role is to keep everyone alive, even our enemies. She cut the transmission and turned to Zurich. Ambassador Captain, your ships need repairs. Your wounded need medical attention. We have the facilities to help. Will you accept our assistance? Zurich felt something shift inside him, a fundamental understanding clicking into place. These humans, with their massive ship and devastating weapons, had just demonstrated something the conquered had built its entire civilization on: the choice to preserve life, even when destroying it would be easier. Yes, Captain Chen, we accept your help. He paused, and I think I understand now why your people survived the death of your world. You refused to let death win, even when it would be simpler to embrace it. Over the next hours, the Resolute became a rescue and recovery center. Human medical teams worked alongside conquered personnel to treat wounded from both sides of the brief battle. Engineers crawled through damaged conquered ships, making repairs with materials and expertise that saved vessels that would otherwise have been lost. Dr. Park found Zurich in one of the medical bays. Zurich was watching a human doctor carefully treat a wounded Kresh pilot, Tixel, the young pilot who had almost started the war. The doctor's hands moved with practiced skill, completely unconcerned that she was saving a species she had never seen before. Your people do not hesitate to help, Zurich observed, even those who are alien to them. Dr. Park smiled. When Earth was dying, we learned something important. Life is precious. All life, not just human life. We had to choose who would come on the Titan-class ships, but we brought as many Earth animals and plants as we could. We brought genetic samples of species we couldn't save physically. We did this because we understood that we were responsible not just for human survival, but for the survival of Earth's entire biosphere. He gestured to the medical bay. Helping your people, helping even the pirates who attacked us. It's the same principle. We're all living beings trying to survive in a vast, often hostile universe. If we don't help each other, what's the point? Zurich watched as the doctor finished treating Tixel and moved on to a pirate with a broken limb. She showed the same care to both. Your species has seen death on a scale we cannot imagine, Zurich said quietly. 4 billion lost, yet you choose to preserve life at every opportunity. This is remarkable. It's not remarkable. Dr. Park's voice was soft. It's necessary. We lost 4 billion people. Yes, we carry that grief with us every day, but we also carry the responsibility to honor their memory by making sure that those who lived and those we meet along the way have the best chance. 3 days later, Zurich stood beside Chen in the council chamber, the same chamber from the morning that now felt like a lifetime ago, the same 200 species, the same water spheres and crystal resonance chambers, the same delphin bubbles and Kresh mandibles. But everything had changed. Chen stepped forward. She reached into her uniform, pulled out the data chip. Complete technical specifications, she said. The words were the same as before, but now they carried the weight of everything Zurich had seen. The gardens, the children, the memorial hall, the battle where no one died. Fusion reactors, agricultural decks, point defense, everything we built to survive. She placed the chip on the podium. No conditions, no payment, take it. Commander Thrax's mandibles stopped clicking. If sharing what we learned helps even one of you survive a crisis. Chen's voice broke. For the first time her composure cracked. Her thumb found the wedding ring, pressed once, twice. Then maybe the 4 billion we lost didn't die for nothing. The vote began. The lights flickered across the chamber walls. Green for yes, red for no, amber for abstain. The Delphin voted first, their bubbles rising in agitation. The Lumini followed, their light pulsing in steady rhythms. 97 in favor, 32 against. The Kresh delegation argued behind closed mandibles. Then Commander Thrax raised his hand. Green. The rest of the Kresh followed. 147 in favor, 53 opposed. Elder Murren's gavel struck the podium. Wood on stone. The motion passes. Humanity has a home. Chen stood in the center of the chamber. She didn't cry. But Zurich saw her thumb find the ring one last time. Press. Stop. The other 11 ships, Thrax said. His mandibles clicked once. What happened to them? Chen's face went pale. They're out there, she said, scattered across the galaxy, each one making its own first contact, each one carrying its own piece of humanity's survival. She paused. We lost contact with 3 of them 2 years ago. We don't know if they survived. The chamber went quiet. Zurich stepped forward. Then we find them. 3 months later, the first children descended to New Terra. The transport shuttle touched down on the planet's surface, and the ramp extended onto soil that had never known human feet. The air smelled of oxygen and something else, green, growing, alive in a way that recycled ship atmosphere could never replicate. A girl of 7 years was the first to step off. Her name was Aisha. She had been born on the Resolute, had never known anything but metal corridors and artificial light. When her bare feet touched the grass, she froze. Her mother knelt beside her. What is it? Aisha didn't answer. She bent down and pressed her palm against the ground. The grass was cool and damp, springy. It bent under her weight and then sprang back when she lifted her hand. It's soft, she whispered. The ground is soft. Other children followed. Shouts of discovery echoed across the landing zone. Grass, dirt, a rock that was actually part of the ground instead of floating in a zero-gravity bay. A bug, a real bug crawling through the soil. Zurich watched from the edge of the clearing. Chen stood beside him. Her uniform was still crisp. Her hair still showed the gray streak, but something in her posture had changed. The tension in her shoulders had eased. 30 years, she said. 30 years since we left Earth. Sometimes I thought we'd never stop running. Zurich extended his hand. Open palm, fingers slightly curved, not a weapon grip, not a plea. We build now, together. Chen looked at his hand, then at his face. She took it. No hesitation. Together, she said. Behind them, the Resolute hung in high orbit. Its lights flickered across the dark metal hull, thousands of points of light against the void. From the surface, it looked like a constellation that had decided to stay. The children kept running through the grass. The ship kept watching over them. And somewhere, in the darkness between stars, 11 other vessels carried the rest of humanity toward futures no one could predict. But that was a story for another time. For now, there was grass. There was ground that didn't move. There was a sky that went on forever, and a lighthouse that had finally stopped wandering.